Good morning and welcome to another show hosted by me, Bob Pace, in the world of child protection services. It's no secret, but I will let you on some things of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. It's very important that you maintain your family and that, a family consists of people like a mother, a father, or if you're a single parent, it's okay there too, but it could be aunt and uncle and your children. And we have an agency which is in charge of watching our children, but also agency that's supposed to do family reunification. Reunification. Now, I would like to go over the little bit of housekeeping rules here. Is that there are several ways you can participate in this live podcast that is broadcast through Facebook on YouTube. And um, I'm from Southern California, and but this goes all over the place. It's even picked up by Australia and England and Canada so far. They have come in to wanting to talk to show. One way you can interact with this show is that you can text a comment in there. Make sure to put your name, what state or country you're calling from, and then also you want to put what your allegations are and what children it involves. And you can sit there and ask questions. I'll display your question, and then you can um, uh, then I can try to answer them, and that way it can help other people right now. Now, I also have another way of interacting with the show is that if you want to do more than just texting a comment and you want to speak about your subject, I'd love to hear from you, good or bad. I'd love to hear how other places are handling cases of CPS because you're going to help the listeners. I have a call in number 626 698 0990. That is my office phone, and you can call that number and reach me directly during the show. Now, my shows are twice a day at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time and at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time in the evening. It's 7 days a week, and that's 14 shows. And so we talk about a lot of things. We do have guest speakers from time to time that will talk about CPS and their experiences. Also, might be somebody in CPS, or it could be a lot of different kinds of people. If you want to be a guest speaker and you don't want to talk now, you can call my other office number, 888-888-6582. Tell them that Bob Pace sent you, that you want to be a guest on my show, and either pick the 10 o'clock morning or the 7 o'clock evening, Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week, so Monday through Sunday. And you can pick whatever days you want and at whatever time. And I'd love to have you on my show because you're an important person. I mean, all you out there are very important people, and what you're going through is horrendous. It's really, really horrendous. And one of the most valuable tool that you need in this dealing with CPS, and that someone that knows the knowledge of CPS and can negotiate around CPS and their laws and their forms and petitions and everything else is Vincent W.C. Davis. He has a law firm, Vincent W. Davis and Associates, with many lawyers in different areas of law. His is family law. His is dependency court, juvenile with the kids there. And so he is a person that is very professional with years of experience that will help you with your matter. It's a very valuable tool. And I will say it this way. If you need open heart surgery, which CPS is like that, you need a doctor, a real doctor, someone that is licensed, someone that's gone through medical school, that's done an internship, someone that has been around a while. That's what you need. A public defender, I'll talk about them later, aren't those kind of lawyers. But Vincent is a true blue attorney, and right now he's offering a 30-minute to 1 hour consultation service at no charge to talk about the strategies of how to fight CPS and how to get your children back. He works in all the states. He's in Southern California, but he also will do Northern California. He'll do other states around the country. Um, his uh, retainer fee, I should say retention, but retainer fee is based on the complexity of the court, the case, and how long the case has been going on, and of course the locality. But he's very fair, and if you can get the necessary funds through maybe something, a credit line from your home or family or friends or savings, which I had to do, and I'll tell you about later about my case, but I made a bad mistake in not having that valuable tool, and not having an attorney, and I tried to fight CPS my own. And all of you can probably relate to that because let me tell you something about CPS. And before I go, I need to tell you a very important number to call to schedule your time with Mr. Davis is 888-888-6582. That's 888-888-6582. Make sure it's very important you tell them that Bob Pace sent you when you call in, and then you can schedule a date and a time that Mr. Davis has an opening. At the bottom is a ticket running, and it gives a website of his calendar. His calendar is there and shows what days he's open, so you can look at that ahead of time. But please call in 888-888-6582. Schedule that free consultation. You have nothing to lose, and you have 1 hour of valuable information that can help you get your kids back and help you deal with that monster CPS. Now you're probably wondering why I'm bad mouthing CPS, and I'm not trying to badmouth anybody, but from true experience, I've been involved with them now going on 14 years, and 3 years was actively involvement until I got my kids back. And I'll tell you more about my story. But I found out that, first of all, they're social workers. They don't need a license, they don't need a certificate. They're not like a doctor or a policeman or something like that. They don't have any kind of credential, no special courses. They can start as soon as they're hired dealing with cases. And that is so bad. They should have a mentor program. A doctor has an internship. He goes for a period of time before he does an open heart surgery. Well, social workers are supposed to be, experienced when they deal with you. My social worker was so young, in her early 20s. She only knew about her Gucci purse, her makeup, her clothes, her car. She wasn't interested in family reunification. She was interested in the bonus programs they give CPS workers. She's interested in the money they give CPS workers. And I got terrible news to tell you. CPS, where I'm in my area, Southern California, is strictly about money. It's $1 billion business, and they uh, want to keep your children. They want to take your children, and they want to keep them in their custody, so they get month to month money from the state and the federal government that is exorbitant amount of money, and they don't even have to report that. There's no watchdog on how that money's spent. They're hoping that they'll get your kids adopted through foster care, and if they do, that money comes into the child turns 18. So if they get them at 5 or 6 years of age, that's many years they're going to get money, and it's $1 billion business. And I've heard this from other places across the country. Um, I was talking with a gentleman yesterday from Alaska who was living in a tent to be close to his family. You know how cold it is to live in a tent in Alaska? It's a terrible experience. I mean, uh, you know, the, uh, the native Indians there uses igloos, which are big solid blocks of ice, but a tent is a fabric and there's no protection. But anyway, he wanted his children so bad that he wanted to be close to them and so forth. And so there's things I'll talk about. There's things called the ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1979. There's a petition 388. There's all these tools that are available for you to utilize as parents that CPS uh, will mislead you. Now, in my case, they were not trustworthy. They were liars, and they were not transparent, and they used deception. And that's a horrible thing to deal with. Here you are thinking you can believe in our government official social services, and they turn out to be bad. And that is not me. There are a lot of people across the country that are going through the same experience as I'm going through, just like your listeners there are listening, of dealing with corruption, dealing with CPS, that their only interest is making money, not family reunification. Yes, there are parents that do bad things to children, no question about that. But not everybody does bad things to parents. And the sad thing about how it all starts is that, first of all, the branch of social service, child protection services, it can have other names in other states and so forth, the, the branch that deals with protecting their children from neglect and abuse, neglect and abuse, neglect and abuse. And it's sad to say, is CPS will abuse your children. I know it firsthand. I'm not making the thing up here, and I'm pretty sure the people listening right now um, are are hearing that comment too. So I'm telling you that it's very important that you get a good understanding of who you're dealing with, and you have that valuable tool to have in place. Another valuable tool is a notebook where you're going to write down the time and the date of incidents happening in your life. You think it's going to be only 30-day involvement. It could be, well, my case was 3 years solidly. It was like longer than that because I had 5 years previously that they were trying to do something. And so you need to write down the date and time and what was happening and the outcome. And the reason why I need to say all that is that you're going to reference that 3 months down the road or with your attorney or whatever it is. You need that information, and the way you can do it is put it in a notebook. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Again, you just put down the date and the time of the incident and when the uh, who was involved, and then the incident itself and the outcome. And that's the second valuable tool. So you need a lawyer and a notebook. Also, you need to know that since you can't trust CPS, you don't let them in your home. You don't need to talk to them. There's no law that says you have to talk to CPS or let them in your home. The only way to get access to your home is through a court order, a warrant that a judge signs that specifically states the name of the individual they're investigating and what they're looking for in the home, because they'll use police to be duped into thinking that you have to let them in your home. Police are not allowed in your home unless they have a warrant. If a police comes knocking at your door, don't answer it. Social worker comes to your door, don't answer it. And that should be your first clue to contact an attorney, because something's coming down hard on you. Why? Because child support services, the social workers, are required by law to answer every allegation. And what I mean by allegation, when someone calls in, a professional or non professional, they're going to make an accusation that you've done something to harm a child. And the sad part is that you're guilty until you're proven innocent. Where in every other court of law, you're innocent till you're proven guilty. You're innocent till you're proven guilty. And but in family law here in dependency courts, you are guilty uh, based on allegation, whether it's factual or not. And that's what's so hard with your case there. That's so hard to um, deal with. And so uh, there's different kinds of allegations. A teacher can notice a child's hands are very badly burnt in the classroom. She has to report by law to the child protection services. I have a child in my school here that had burnt hands. And so what's going to happen is that social workers are going to investigate. They may talk to the mother, which you don't have to, and say, how come your child has burnt fingers? Is he okay? And in that particular case, the mother was using some weird way of telling a kid about the stove is hot, so he placed his fingers on the stove. Well, that's a common mistake that a lot of parents make. Again, that's not life or death. And, once you hear the allegation, you better get a doctor saying that they're all right or it's just a slight burn where it is because they'll make a big case out of that and they will abduct your children. They'll take your children so fast. So it's really, you have to be careful about things like that. If, for instance, if you have a family member that may have drugs on them, and that's another thing I like to talk about drugs. It's against the law when you have minors in the home to have anything related to illegal drugs. That could be things that go along with the drugs. Don't even have to be the drug itself. Or a child opens a purse, gets a drug, and ingests it. That's harmful in the child. So at no times are you supposed to have anything related to drugs or do drugs yourself. And people say, well, medical marijuana. Well, I wouldn't want to risk that. I know medical marijuana is safe, but you're going to have to be really careful there because medical marijuana isn't for minors under the age of 18. Um, so I don't know uh, why you as parents want to have marijuana in your home if you got young children. I guess wait till you're over age, wait till they're grown up or something. But anyway, or do the medical thing at the doctor's or the wherever you do it. But I'm telling you, don't set yourself up because they will blow it up 20 times. They'll take one thing and stretch it. They'll stretch it so bad. I've heard horror stories where a woman is given a childbirth and a social worker marches in and grabs the child right after birth. And this was a case where mother tested positive for drugs. She was having a baby, and the social worker came in there and took the child. Or you could be in a case with social workers, and you're not allowed to get pregnant. You're not allowed to have children while you're involved with social services because they will take the child away at birth. And that's a horrific thing for mothers to go back. They're not your friend. They're not your friend. And they'll use so much deception on you. Um, so you need to protect yourself. You need to have that tool going with your attorney and your notebook, keeping track of your notes. Also, if there's any questions about your child having issues or problems medically or anything like that, make sure you see your doctor, not the CPS's doctor. And by the way, CPS workers think they also can handle mental health. They think they can tell someone whether they have a mental health problem or something. They think they can give prescription for drugs, and that is totally wrong. And social workers are people like yourself, but they're motivated or driven by this money hunger craze. And that's the sad part because my family was totally destroyed, totally restored. And my allegations were by family members. And those family members made false allegations because they were trying to take our children from us. They're trying to alienate us from us. And I had some hiccups in my life. I had a perfect storm brewing. And I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'd like to go back and try to talk about some things um, that I mentioned earlier on there. Um, what you need to know, having CPS, Child Protective Services, a social worker, intervene in your relationship with your children will be terrifying. It is so horrible. That's why it's essential to empower yourself with the knowledge to know and enforce your rights when they are doing that to you. You have to know how to enforce your rights and have the knowledge. One way to do that is hire an experienced attorney that can help you navigate the law and your rights when Child Protective Service is going to investigate you, and he'll help you feel less stress. They will investigate you. There's all kinds of ways that they come to investigate you. In the early stages, they were investigating from the allegations my wife's family members were making, which were not true. And they were saying things that were god awful, like there was no food, there was no utilities, there was no clothing, they didn't go to school. Well, every time I talked to them, I said, here's their school records, here's their grade reports, here's all the utilities being paid. See the refrigerator, it's full of food. Um, you know, uh, it was so hard because every allegation, and they were strictly doing that. I did not realize at that time until years later that it was my wife's family members that was reporting the allegations. And I should have guessed it because in the beginning, and we've been together for 30 years, my wife and I, and um, she met me early on 30 years ago, and she wanted to um, be with me, marry me, and so forth. Her family didn't want to. In fact, they were so bad they wouldn't show up to her wedding. She was 28 at the time, not when she got married, but when she met me. So she was already in her 30s when she got married because we, met and dated for about 5 years before we got married. So she was in her 30s, and I'm 15 years older. And um, we were taking our time, get married, but they wouldn't come. We did not know how bad they were because when we started having children, they started inviting the children to come visit them because they're in another state, and they were trying to alienate us. Now, the word alienation is really important to know because it's against the law to alienate, and there's all kinds of alienation. The most common one is when parents are going through a custody case, when parents are separated and the children are acted like a pawn because one parent is trying to talk bad about the other parent. And it does make custody orders very complicated. Um, when parents have especially contentious relationships, this can lead to disputes, damaged relationships, and even parent alienation. Parent alienation can hurt everyone in the family, especially children. If you believe your co parent is manipulating your children or children being alienated from you, it's essential to learn the signs and how to handle parent alienation. Now, um, there's other alienations that I should tell you about, which I didn't really realize at the first. There's CPS alienations. They're going to try to alienate you from your kids. And um, it's a deliberate manipulation of tactics used by CPS to get the children to fear or dislike the other parent. Now, when alienation is happening, um, what really happens is this alienation, and it can be also family members, which were trying to do the same thing. Family members, not necessarily the immediate family, but family members of the extended family. And what they do is that they start off with lies about the parents. Um, they stop the contact. That's one thing CPS will do. You'll see less and less of your children, and you're allowed to discuss things with them. So they manipulate the contact and communication between the child and you as the parent. They will criticize and negatively talk about the parent. Um, you know, uh, sometimes in parents, what they do there is a parent's authority is interfered with. They undermined. It's like one parent is trying to give discipline, the other parent says, "Oh no, you're too hard." That's alienation. That's wrong. Also, one parent during custody matters will ignore the custody orders, which makes it really hard on the family. Another way they do is they ruin activities with the child. during the time, let's say the visits and so forth. Also, CPS shares your information is not kept confidential. Anything you learned about your case is open game for them. They're going to dig past cases you may have had with CPS, use that against you. I've seen that happen so bad. Um, they're going to do everything they can to keep your children and alienate your children. And what usually happens is that the child will change very quickly. Our daughter, who is our middle child there, um, will was led to believe through CPS that foster care was better for her because she can get her Disneyland passes and live in her. She's like a Barbie girl living in a Barbie world, and that references to me as parents. I had a job, and one of the things in the storm was I lost my job, and then my savings were cut in half, and I had a real expensive lifestyle, beautiful home, and everything. And another thing that was happening was that my parents were dying, and I took on their belongings because they wanted to vacate their house or sell their house. And suddenly I didn't have the funds to put in storage, and I had all their belongings in my home. And that's where they try to get you for neglect. They're thinking that the boxes are going to go upstairs and attack the children, or the furniture is going to move and attack the children. It was really sickening what they looked for. But, I worked through that. But you got to be careful with this alienation thing. Um, it creates negative impact about the parent. Um, our kids are still suffering from what the group home did to our parents. They um, uh, really hurt our kids in the group home. They hurt our kids in the shelter. They really hurt our kids in the foster care. I had that experience with all of them. So you need to be careful of this alienation thing. The less you talk to a social worker, the better off you are. A yes no answer. And you should have your attorney present. They're not transparent. One thing that was really disturbing to me was that um, the social workers were seen purposely doing things that they're not supposed to. Um, it's really, really hard when you got a social worker that is inexperienced, his only interest is money and not family reunification. You, as parents, may have hiccups in life, and through parenting classes and through other um, uh, things you have to do in your plan. You have a plan, a court order plan that dictates what you do and when you see your children and how you should see them. And it's really important that you follow the plan and do everything they ask of you. Don't try to fight it. Um, I felt like I was Alice in Wonderland. In my case, I'd fallen down a rabbit hole, and I was in all kinds of places that were weird and liars and stuff. I tried to fight CPS without an attorney. I wrote emails. I wrote letters with emails. Um, I tried to talk with them through meetings. I even talked to the top dog at their palace, their Taj Mahal building, and all the management team, and said, "Oh, they'll help me or they'll get back to me." It was out one ear and out the other ear. They don't listen. They don't care. They're such a strong power thing. They have no accountability. No one is being a watchdog or determining how good they are. And CPS workers have really changed because they're not experienced. They don't have um, um, let me see here. I thought I had something here about. They don't really um, require like a college degree or any kind of certification or a mentor program they go through. Now, there is one license that social workers can get. It's called a clinical social worker. It's the LCSW. That is a social work license, but that CLSW is not what these social workers will have. Um, if they are an LCSW, they must meet certain requirements, education requirements, and a master's degree in social from accredited school of social work, verified by electronic transcripts. They also need field experience over 3,000 total supervised hours and over 104 weeks minimum before they even can practice that. Now, these social workers you deal with aren't these same ones there. They are not. Um, Now, in order to be that clinical thing, they have to have background in psychotherapy and so forth. And social workers make a good money, by the way. Um, they're making over $50 an hour, and you think for that money they would be fair and want to get family reunification. So one thing that was important that I found out that now a social worker is a case worker or a welfare worker, and that's what a social worker. And then in the case of child protection social workers, um, that could be. Let me see here. Let me see. So it is a scary thing to know that you're dealing with people that are out there taking care of your children and they don't have a license. They don't have a license. They have to recertify or anything else. I mean, a doctor has a license, and a social worker doesn't have a license. Um, unless they want to be a clinical social worker, they have to go to school to get a degree, and they have to um, get a master's degree and so many hours of experience before they can be a clinical social worker. But the people you're dealing with are not clinical social workers. That's the big mistake, and that's the sad part. If all the social workers were clinical, then I'd feel a bit better because they at least have a master's degree and they at least have the 3,000 hours or the 104 weeks of experience being mentoring as a social worker. So when you're involved with them, you got to accept the fact that they are not very truthful. They're supposed to do certain things. One of their things early on is that when they're investigating you, and let's say they decide to take away your children, and they take away children wrongly and extremely, they're going to first put them in a shelter or a hotel or something. Um, and because later in the week, you're going to meet with them again to work out a safety plan of where the child's going to stay. And the shelter that I put that I had no choice, they stole my children and put them in, was next to a prison near the dependency court in a place that was not adequately safety. Outside the yard was a beehive that attacked the children. They had terrible food there. It was overcrowded and it was dirty. That was their idea of protecting our children and being a social worker. Now, the next step when you have that meeting is called a safety plan meeting. That's where you sit with a social worker. You don't sit with your kids because they try to alienate you from your kids. You don't have group meetings. I thought they'd have group meetings for once a week. You got together with the kids and your family and work out a family reunification plan. The kids would know that the parents there, the kids know the parents are caring. The kids can bring up their points and stuff. They don't do that. Right away, they alienate you from your kids. They don't want the kids to participate. They don't even want the kids to know that your parents are still trying to get them back. They're trying to break them down and steal your kids. They are trying to brainwash them to think you're horrible parents, you never see your kids again. They're so scared and traumatized by the people put in charge. In the group home they were placed in, they had a chart to keep track of points. So they did something terribly wrong. And again, that group home was run by Boys Town. And no offense, I think Boys Town philosophy is great, but it's supposed to deal with kids that don't have parents. And so they were trying to run a group home of kids that had parents, but the parents were going through some difficult times or had to take up some time. So they let Boys Town bid on running the group home, and then they sent out somebody from the Midwest that doesn't know anything about California or kids are in California. Young guy, married, young girl. They have a little 2-year-old or a little 1-year-old running around, and then she's pregnant with another child, and they're going to take care of 6 other children, and it's terrible. My son was scolded because he wants to drink orange juice. He says you can't drink orange juice that much, or my son wanted to study late at night. He was in the STEM classes, going to a private school, and they said, no, turn the lights off, time out. They didn't care. They don't care about your educational rights or medical rights. That's something you don't want to forget. Do not forget you have educational and medical rights. You don't want to lose them on that one. All this is going on, and I'm not having an attorney, and I think it's a good time to talk about an attorney again. Remember, I told you it's the number one important tool in fighting your case? Well, we have an attorney here. I'm not an attorney. It's Vincent um, W. Davis. He is a licensed lawyer, a professional lawyer, and he's in family law. He's a trial attorney. He's done numerous cases. He's fought CPS and won. He's got kids back. And he's also sued CPS and won criminally for them doing illegal things. So he's an excellent attorney. And right now, he's offering a 30-minute up to an hour strategy session with him at no charge to talk about strategies of how to get your kids back and how to fight CPS. And all you have to do is call 888-888-6582 and ask and tell them that Bob Pace sent you and ask for a time to meet with him. Now, he has a really hectic calendar, but if you look at the bottom, there's a ticket goes by with a website. Go to that website. It'll tell you his calendar, and so that way you can pick a date or time that works for you and him. So you want to call 888-888-6582 and talk to him. You have nothing to lose. Also, if you like him, you may want to retain him. His retention is based on a sliding scale. Depends on how complex the case is, how long it's been, and whether you're in Southern California, Northern California, or one of the other states will depend on the price. It's very fair, and it's worth every cent you spend on him because he will get your children back. He will fight for you. He's a fighter. As I say, he's a trial attorney. He knows how to fight, and he knows how to beat them. And he's well familiar there. So call 888-888-6582. Also, if you want to be a guest on the show to talk about your case, same number, 888-888-6582. Tell them that Bob Pace sent you, and you can be on one of my 14 shows. I'm on at 7 o'clock, I'm on at 10 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night Pacific Standard Time. That's 7 days a week. That's 14 shows that you could be a guest on. So call 888-888-6582. Tell them Bob Pace sent you, and you can schedule a time to be on the show or get a hold of Mr. Davis. Also, I'm taking comments. I haven't had any yet this morning, but if you want to talk about something and you don't feel in the mood to really talk live, you can write down your name and the state or the country you're calling from and what is your issue with CPS. Also, the number of children involved and so forth. And I'll try my best to help you out there. So that's a comment that can interact there. Another way is if you want to talk right now, you can call my office phone. That's 626-698-0990. And I'll put you on speakerphone and you can talk during this show. We have about 20 minutes left of this show. So there's still plenty of time to call in if you want to talk on the show and talk about your case and not hear so much of my case. Anyway, I want to go back to something I said earlier called ICWA. ICWA is a very important act for Native American families. It was an act in 1979 which tells that CPS must contact a tribe that you belong to, your child, has Native American heritage, whether it's full blood or not. If the child or you are registered or could be registered, then what will happen? They will take over. So this act, this law in 79, requires CPS workers to talk to you about having your children be taken by a tribe. What that means is that the tribe takes care of their own problems on their reservations. Federal government does not intervene. This is to protect Indian children, a lot of them in California. And so it's one of those things that I have this message here. I'm trying to get rid of on my screen. There we go. It's one of these things that, they're not out there to make money off your children. They will help you get your kids back. Tribes are like big families. They care about their people. They care about a lot of things on so forth. And so it's really important that if you qualify, you follow up on it or have CPS do it. They're required by law. The Act of 1979 was a law enacted called the Indian Welfare Child Act, ICWA. And that's something that you look at. Another thing I talked about was the Petition 388. The Petition 388 is a tool that's used in the courts to introduce new evidence or new outcomes of your case. You want to change the current plan, then that form is utilized, filled out, and turned into court. It's a court's way of changing the current plan and drop it or delete it or amend it or whatever it is. But the 388 is where you attach your attachments to it, and it's a law form. It's a law form. I mean, it's supposed to be done legally on the right stationery and the right way of doing everything. And what you do is you're introducing new evidence or something like, say, you've completed your drug uh, testing free. I mean, you've been tested free of no drugs for 6 months. You can enter that in, or you completed some parenting classes, or you completed some other classes, domestic violence, anger management. There's all kinds of different classes, but anyway, that's used to do there. It's used to change venues too. But an attorney knows what a 388 is, and I know that most states have it. I was talking with a person from Maine, and they said they use that form too. So that's important that you utilize that form to get your new evidence submitted in there and change your current plan. The thing is, it's so important that you keep fighting this case. You don't want to ever stop fighting or give in. A lot of people, it's so bad they have to, and that's what their CPS is hoping on. Because once you lost your child, you won't be able to get them back. That's the sad part about it. And they say that child protection services is really, uh, there to help you. They're not. They're not helping you. They're not doing family reunification. I don't think they know what family reunification is. I think what it is to them, it's the games that play using your children. It's sad because they shouldn't be allowed to do that. They should not be allowed to do that. So, with that being said, um, it's again a reminder, it's a yes/no answer to them. And again, you need that very first valuable tool I said, which was a lawyer. And with that lawyer, and of course your second tool, the notebook of notes, you'll be able to fight them and be able to do everything they ask you to do. Don't argue about it if you think something's wrong because they're looking for that. So what you want to do is just do it and get it done with. And I went ahead and did all my stuff quicker than sometimes they assigned it to you and stuff. And it's a horrible thing to go through because my whole 3 years was like hell there. Not only was I fighting to save my home and look for a job, and I kept getting turned down because they thought I was too old. And so I was dealing with the death of my parents. They're dying and so forth there. So I had a lot of things going working against me. But my children, my wife and I love our children very, very much. And even though one child was convinced to divorce the parents at age 12, um, she still is in my heart. I've not been able to alienate her from her. She's sealed her original birth certificate so you can't see it. She's changed her name, and but I don't think she's that happy. I hear from her brothers who still visit her that things aren't all that great. She's had a lot of hiccups and stuff. CPS does affect the children. My two boys that are living here at home are affected very much so, and they are doing together. But it should not be at the expense of children. They talk about protected children. I think CPS does just the opposite. I think they hurt children through alienation. They hurt children through abuse and not protecting them and so forth. So what I'd like to say to you all is that don't give up. It's not the end, and to go ahead and get that attorney to help you. Now, I mentioned something about public defenders. Every case that you have, they will give you a public defender if you don't have a lawyer to defend yourself. Well, there's a big mistake on public defenders. Um, they're not really good lawyers. They're brand new lawyers starting out. They have a caseload of about 20 people, and they only have about 5 minutes of their time to work with you. And they don't really fight very hard in court. Now, they say that you're supposed to be there in the court, all times when your case is being talked about. But with us, They would let us in the courtroom to sign a paper, or they come in briefly and then leave. They never let us see the whole case there. Yeah, you're right. We have somebody, we are humans, that said flood defenders have no time for their clients. You're so right about that. Plus, they wheel and deal in the courtroom. One of the reasons they don't want you in the courtroom, they don't want to see all the wheels and deals they do with the social workers, attorneys, the judge, and so forth. My judge was terrible. He was experienced in collision claims and property damages to cars, but had no experience in juvenile matters or dependency court or family law. And so uh, it's very important, this being election year, that we go out and elect our judges. Not only are we supposed to elect our president, vice president, and so forth, we're supposed to elect our judges. It's really important that we elect our judges because they're so key on everything we do. So take a moment in November, vote for a judge in each of the courts that are vacant, and hopefully we'll get a good judge there. Yep, I agree with you about we are human. I have a person right now that's talking. Um, I don't know what state they're talking from, but or what their allegations are, but they've had a terrible time with public defenders, and I agree. Mine was bad. It's so bad in the courtroom. I found out the judge has golf or luncheons with the social workers, the attorney. It's a palsy wowsy courtroom. Um, I just it was just sad. It was so sad. They took a family and they destroyed the family. They destroyed. There isn't a day go by as I don't think about it, and it hurts me to hear other people are experiencing what I experienced. It's not fair. It's not right. It's bad enough to be involved with them, let alone them trying to destroy or take away further respect and everything. Because we as parents love our kids and we'll do anything to get our kids back there. So we have about 7 minutes left. Let's see, I've talked about ICWA and the 388. And let me see, talked about parent alienation. That was important. Um, the visits with your kids are going to be limited. Some of it's going to be in custody. Um, but keep in mind that CPS workers will show up at your house without notice, but they cannot legally force their way into your home. They need permission from you. They need permission from you. Now, CPS will respond. They're required by law within 24 hours. So if an allegation is made, whether it's factual or not, they have to respond in 24 hours. Now, some courts have different things. I know in Sacramento County, they have a time of 2 hours. 2 hours, not 24 hours to respond to a case. So they don't have to say um, who reported the incident, but I think anybody that make allegations against another person should do so in writing and sign their name. They don't have to disclose it to anybody else, keep it confidential. But if somebody writes what alleges taking place and sign their names, it's a little bit more credible. If they get on a phone and hide behind a phone and say what they want to say, then uh, that may not be factual, may be a waste of time, or using the CPS to fight on a custody battle, or in my case, my family members trying to take away our children. Now, one thing is really hard when you do a CPS interview, in that time you should not talk and you should have an attorney present and you don't even have to show up. So be very careful during that interview. So you really got to be careful of the uh, let me see here. Real briefly, I want to go over abuse and neglect again. There is sexual abuse, which where a child is victimized of sexual activity. It includes molestation, indecent exposure, falling, rape, and incest. There's physical abuse. That's where it's bodily inflicted by other than accidental means on a child, such as willful cruelty, unjustified punishment, or corporate punishment. There's also emotional abuse, which is non-physical resulting in disturbed behavior by a child, such as severe withdrawal or hyperactivity. Emotional abuse includes willful causing any child to suffer, include mitigating or endangers a child's emotional well-being. One thing about emotional abuse could be parents arguing. That is a no-no. Do not argue in front of your children. That is emotional abuse to them. They don't need to hear that argument, and all it does is escalates and escalates. So you need to do a timeout to get away from that and so forth. Um, some neglect is failure of the parent to provide adequate food, clothing, shelter, and supervision. Um, that's general neglect. Severe neglect includes a child's health is endangered, including malnutrition. So if the child's not fed correctly. Exploitation means forces or coerces a child to perform activities that are beyond a child's capability, which are illegal and degrading. And I'm talking about where some parents will take pictures of their children, send them out there, and so forth like that. So, um, the social service workers uh, will get involved. There's no question about that. Now, um, after group homes comes the foster care. And the foster care are parents that want children that like to take care of children. They may want to adopt the children because they can't have children of their own. But a lot of foster cares are bad. They will harm your child in custody. My young son was in custody with them and he was sentenced to be locked up in his room. And our kids didn't need discipline. They were very well because they did great in school. And um, foster care is kind of the last state where they're going to be adopted. And of course, CPS is hoping that they will because they get the money to their 18. So um, that is a hard thing there. I've reached my time of my session here. I have another session later tonight at 7 o'clock p.m. And I encourage you all either call in at 888-888-6582 to be a speaker on the show. Don't forget to call Mr. Davis, the attorney, for that free strategy meeting, 888-888-6582, and he'll talk to you for a good hour about strategies of getting your child back and fighting CPS. So I appreciate you all listening. Um, I know it's been probably still hard for you all. I wish I was there to help you in person. And all I can say is keep fighting your case. Do not give up. You love your children. Say that, and you love your children. Try to give proper tools. The lawyer and the notebook; those are important. And so I want you all to have the best of the new year. Best of luck, and I hope it brings you much happiness. And God bless you all. And I'll see you tonight. This is Bob Pace signing off.